Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose, and in this case, your weekly dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. I appreciate you joining us today. We're going to be playing some video for you and talking about the rise of anti-Semitism that is happening on college and university campuses. Representative Elise Stefanik of New York grilled the presidents of UPenn, MIT, and Harvard, and you might be shocked to find out that they would not denounce chants of genocide against Israelis on their campuses. Also, you have more Chinese men, military age, that have been amassing at our southern border. What is going on with that and this new strange respiratory virus in China? And lastly, Robert Spencer, the author of The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran, is going to be joining us to talk about the rise in anti-Semitism on those college campuses and the role that Iran has to play in the Israel-Hamas war and the anti-Semitism on the college campuses. All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. I'm glad you joined us today. We've got a bang-up show for you today. Robert Spencer, the author of the book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran, is going to be joining us later in the program. You're going to want to stay tuned for that interview. It is going to be an amazing interview. We're going to talk about Iran's hand on the Israel-Hamas war. Also what they're doing to stir division right here in the United States of America on our college campuses, and also the UN. What role are they playing in the Israel-Hamas war? So you're not going to miss that interview with Robert Spencer. So again, make sure you stay tuned for that. Before we get to that, though, I want to talk to you about some of the things that have been going on around the country, particularly when it comes to the anti-Semitism. Actually, that's what I want to talk about, the anti-Semitism that we see spreading or seemingly spreading across this country. And a lot of it that we're seeing is right on our college campuses and some of our most prestigious universities, where literally you have Jewish students that have been assaulted, that feel as though they're under direct threat from other students, non-Jewish students. Some of them have had to hide themselves in closets in different rooms on college campuses to get away from people. Well, Representative Stefanik, a Republican from New York, grilled a couple of these college presidents the other day, and I want you to take a look at some of this video and their answers. She has the president of UPenn, she has the president of MIT, and also the president of Harvard that she grills on the anti-Semitism that's taking place on their campuses. And I got to tell you guys, I want you to brace yourself, because their answers are going to absolutely stun you. See, here's what I believe is what's happening. And again, we'll play the video for you in just a quick sec. What's happening across or happening in our institutions, namely, for the sake of this video that'll be coming up shortly here, the identity politics on college campuses. I believe these ladies, I want you to consider this. I'm not saying this to be a chauvinist, but there's something that's sincerely wrong here when you watch this video. All of the ladies running these most prestigious institutions that you're going to witness, MIT, UPenn, and also Harvard, they happen to be women. Now, I'm not saying that to say that they're not qualified to be in those positions because they're women, but I am saying that because there's anti-Semitism that has risen on their campus, skyrocketed on their campuses, and I have to sit here and wonder if identity politics has played a part in them being so weak in confronting the issue. Meaning, are they thinking, hey, we're women, we're higher on the totem pole than Jews? I have to ask this. It's not comfortable to ask it, but I have to ask it because this doesn't make sense. We're going to roll the video for you right now. I want you to hear this jaw-dropping testimony for yourself. Gabe, let's go ahead and roll the video, please.
At MIT, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate MIT's code of conduct or rules regarding bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
If targeted at individuals, not making public statements.
Yes or no? Calling for the genocide of Jews does not constitute bullying and harassment?
I have not heard calling for the genocide for Jews on our campus.
But you've heard chants for intifada.
I've heard chants, which can be anti-Semitic depending on the context, when calling for the elimination of the Jewish people.
So those would not be according to the MIT's code of conduct or rules.
That would be investigated as harassment if pervasive and severe.
Ms. McGill, at Penn, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's rules or code of conduct? Yes or no?
If the speech turns into conduct, it can be harassment, yes.
I am asking specifically calling for the genocide of Jews. Does that constitute bullying or harassment?
If it is directed and severe or pervasive, it is harassment.
So the answer is yes.
It is a context-dependent decision, Congresswoman.
It's a context-dependent decision. That's your testimony today. Calling for the genocide of Jews is depending upon the context.
I need you to pause this. This is the easiest question. That's what the representative is getting ready to say. I am so glad that she brought these people to Washington, D.C. to grill them on this issue. Listen, let me just be straight with you. If you are a Jewish American, if you're a donor to these institutions, what the hell are you doing? I'm sorry to be so blunt. I'm sorry to use such strong language, but it makes no sense for you to donate to institutions or even to have your children attend institutions where they are going to be hated, where they are going to be harassed, where the people there are willing to watch their family members in Israel or their ancestors in Israel die at the hands of Hamas. This is completely insane. Look at how difficult it is for these people to answer a simple question. You've heard them say, you've heard protests, chanting, from the river to the sea, from the river to the sea, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Have you ever looked at a map of the Middle East? You understand that when these people chant from the river to the sea, they're talking about the total annihilation of a people, of a nation state in Israel. Let's go back to the video, please, Gabe.
That is not bullying or harassment. This is the easiest question to answer yes, Ms. McGill. So is your testimony that you will not answer yes?
If it if the
Yes
speech
or no?
becomes if the speech becomes conduct, it can be harassment. Yes.
Conduct meaning committing the act of genocide? The speech is not harassment. This is unacceptable, Ms. McGill. I'm going to give you one more opportunity for the world to see your answer. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Penn's code of conduct when it comes to bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be harassment.
The answer is yes. And Dr. Gay, at Harvard, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
It can be, depending on the context.
What's the context?
Targeted as an individual, targeted at an...
Stop the tape. Stop the tape. Por favor, Gabe. Stop the tape. Guys, that is a... Okay, this is evident. Okay, that is a black woman. I want you to, for 1 second, imagine if someone was on a college campus, if there were a group of people on any one of these college campuses talking about blacks and using the N-word, what do you think their answers would be? How quickly do you think that a student would be expelled off of that college campus? It would happen so fast, it would be insane. It would be insane. This lady, these ladies are absolutely disgusting. They're despicable and they're weak. You know what they are? They're leftists. These are actually let's take it further. These are communists. If you want to know what communism looks like, you're watching it right now. The fact that you cannot answer a simple question as to whether or not telling Jews you want to kill them basically is harassment. Where are we? Where are we? These ladies are terrible. They're despicable. They're dangerous. Let's go ahead and finish the, if you haven't already picked your jaw up off the floor, you may want to wait because we've got a little more on this video. Let's go ahead and roll the game.
Individual.
It's targeted at Jewish students, Jewish individuals. Do you understand your testimony is dehumanizing them? Do you understand that dehumanization is part of antisemitism? I will ask you one more time. Does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules of bullying and harassment? Yes or no?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when
And is it
crosses into
anti-Semitic rhetoric?
Anti-Semitic rhetoric, when it crosses into conduct that amounts to bullying, harassment, intimidation, that is actionable conduct, and we do take action.
So the answer is yes, that calling for the genocide of Jews violates Harvard Code of Conduct, correct?
Again, it depends on the context.
It does not depend on the context. The answer is yes, and this is why you should resign. These are unacceptable answers across the board.
Absolutely astonishing. I'm sitting here, I watched this video earlier, and I'm watching it again, and I am shocked beyond belief. These people, you're not safe. Listen to me. If you attend Harvard, if you attend MIT, if you attend UPenn as a Jew, you are not safe. These people will not protect you. You're not high enough on the totem pole, if you will. You're not high enough. Your identity politics doesn't work for them. You're a Jew. They think you're a colonizer in the Middle East. This is what these people sincerely believe. We're going to have a guest coming up in just a segment or two, Robert Spencer, because he's going to talk about why and how these college campuses have been so influenced that they're willing to not stick up for their Jewish students. This is absolutely insane. This is sick. I don't know what else to say. We'll be back with more, though. I can tell you that. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. All right, guys, I want to play another quick video for you. We showed you the video earlier of these college presidents of these prestigious universities that simply would not reject chance of genocide on their campuses. I want to show you another quick video. James Carville, a Democratic strategist, he worked closely with the Clinton administration and the Clinton campaign back in the day, said that there's a rise of Christian nationalism that we need to be afraid of in the United States. I want you to listen to this audio, and then I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on and why you should be concerned. And then also, I want to talk to you about this children's respiratory virus that is spreading all across China. And then, obviously, we'll have Robert Spencer coming up to talk to us about the threat of Iran and the threat that they pose both to the United States and Israel. And I'm going to try to tie all of this together in one segment, so Lord help me. All right, let's go ahead and roll this video. This is James Carville talking about the threat of Christian nationalism, and I'm going to tell you why all of this stuff ties in and why this is important. Let's go ahead and roll the tape, por favor. Gabe, this from Sky News.
Now to a lefty losing it on Bill Maher's program. This is Democratic strategist James Carville claiming that Speaker Mike Johnson is a bigger threat to America than the mass murdering terrorists of Al-Qaeda. No, really.
Mike Johnson and what he believes is one of the greatest threats we have today to the United States. I promise you, I know these people.
Well, you're talking about Christian nationalism.
Absolutely. This is a bigger threat than Al-Qaeda to this country. And let me tell you something. They're Speaker of the House. They got probably at least 2 Supreme Court justices, maybe more.
So that was James Carville. And I want to speak to that, but before I speak to that, I want you to watch this other video that we have prepared for you, and then I'm going to try to tie all of this stuff together. This is a video that we'll be showing you of Chinese men that have been coming across the southern border. And actually, let's do this, Gabe. Let's wait on that for just a sec. If we can, let's find the other video. It's a little shorter that Tony sent earlier. But anyway, okay. So let me just opine on what happened with James Carville while Gabe gets this other video together. All right. So James Carville said that the threat of Christian nationalism is a bigger threat to the United States than Al-Qaeda. James Carville, I want you to understand this. James Carville does not believe that Christian nationalism is a bigger threat to the United States than Al-Qaeda. As a matter of fact, James Carville knows that there is no threat of Christian nationalism. There is no threat that Christians are going to say, listen, you're going to follow what we say or you're going to die. You know why I know that? And you know why you can know that? Because this is a Judeo-Christian nation built upon the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution of the United States of America. Judeo-Christian values. Because of those Judeo-Christian values, we say, come one, come all, come to this country legally. We're going to love on you. We're going to respect you. But we have certain traditions that have made this country the best country that God has ever given man and that man has ever known. It is because of those Judeo-Christian principles that someone as despicable as James Carville has the freedom of speech to speak out and say something so silly, so insane, and so crazy. Let me ask you this. Have you seen Christian nationalists, if you will, beheading babies and raping women en masse, burning babies even in ovens? Have you seen that? Have you heard of that? Is that really a threat? It's amazing that this is a Judeo-Christian nation, isn't it? That people flock to from all over the world. It is us. It is the United States of America, this Judeo-Christian nation that has a serious problem at our southern border. When it's an open border, you have Biden's open border crisis. You have people that flock here. If these people were really concerned about Christian nationals, right, being like Al-Qaeda, they wouldn't come here. The truth is, this is the best country in the world, and everyone and their mother knows it. James Carville wants to win an election. And how can he win an election? James Carville believes that he can win an election by dividing us. I want you to understand, this hit is not meant to really stir up, if you will, hatred amongst Democrats, though it will. But Democrats already hate conservatives. They hate Christians. It's obvious now that the Democrat Party is largely anti-Semitic. But what James Carville is strategically trying to do is divide the base within the conservative, the constitutional restorationists, the Republican movement. That is his goal. His goal is to get us to turn against each other. All right, well, we got libertarians, we got, moderate Republicans, we've got conservatives. Oh, but you got these Christian nationalists. Remember that Trump won in 2016 in large part due to the evangelical vote. What do? You get part of the base to turn against the evangelical vote. You split the vote, and then even someone like Joe Biden could walk back into the White House. All right, so keep that in mind. That's the game that James Carville is playing. Now, I want to take you to our southern border. I want you to look at these men. All right, we have a bunch of men, Chinese men, that are flooding our southern border right now in numbers that we have not seen. Literally, I think in all of last year, there were, I can't remember, I believe, I'm not sure if it was 2,400 or maybe in the last several years, 24,000. But in just the last couple of months, we've had 9,800 Chinese nationals that have come through our southern border illegally. What's going on? What is going on? Guys, let me give you a headline, and I'll have to talk about this in a later podcast. But then I'm very concerned about this. There was another video, and unfortunately, we just didn't have the time to play it, where it was explained that the numbers that have been increasing in these Chinese nationals that have been coming to the United States by leaps and bounds in the last year. I mean, the numbers are frightening. Let me read you this quick headline. I was going to do a podcast on this last week. I didn't do it. We will do one in the future. This is from the Blaze. Mystery respiratory illness, listen to me, in dogs spreading across the country. Veterinarians advise to avoid potentially deadly disease. A mystery respiratory illness in dogs is spreading across the country. While veterinarians don't know much about the sickness, they have some recommendations to avoid potentially deadly disease. We'll get into that in another podcast. Let me take you to this. Let me take you to this headline. This from Zero Hedge. CCP deploys cover-up for mysterious pneumonia outbreak in children. All right? I want you to understand this. No travel visa is needed for Chinese citizens. Or Chinese immigrants, I'm sorry. Chinese immigrants do not suffer the same level of scrutiny as special interest aliens that may be coming from Mexico or Southern America or other parts of the world. For some reason, we do not vet Chinese immigrants in the same way that we vet other illegal immigrants coming to the country. Guys, all of this stuff, be prepared. All of this stuff is connected. The rising anti-Semitism, our enemies are coming for us. Iran is the reason why those college institutions are so anti-Semitic. They are funding it. They're helping to fund it. Just 3 years, listen to this, after the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in China, the country grapples with an unidentified pneumonia outbreak that is sickening children and overwhelming their hospitals. The story reads, and strollers are carried by their parents. Sick children have been filling hospital waiting rooms, hallways, and spilling outside the main gate. They wait for hours hoping for their number, because they're just a number in China. It'll be that way soon in America, to be called on the loudspeaker before the day is over. Patients are waiting 12 hours or more in some cases after staying past midnight in a hospital hallway with a lot of people. A Beijing resident shared a photo while holding a ticket number in the 1800s. All right? This is absolutely insane. Just waiting to get an IV drop. The spike in the children's respiratory hospitalization is so high that the health authorities in China are issuing announcements telling both teachers and students who feel unwell to stay home. One dad said of his school-age daughter, everyone in the class is coughing. You can't even hear what the teacher is saying. The CCP is dismissive of this, just as they were of COVID, telling the concerned World Health Organization that there are, quote, no unusual or new pathogens or clinical symptoms. And the regime's excuse for the uptick is a mid-October upgrade in respiratory surveillance mechanism. In other words, they're just watching more people. Now, the Chinese people aren't buying into this, but unfortunately, the CDC is. Luckily for us, we have some resistance at the Walter Reed Medical Center. So thank God for that. But guys, they are coming for us. Again, stay tuned for Robert Spencer. We'll be talking about this more on the other side. All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. I am looking forward to speaking with my guest here, Robert Spencer. He's written The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran, and I thought he was the perfect guest to have on the show today to talk to us about the rise in anti-Semitism that we see occurring right here in the United States across college campuses and off of college campuses as well. Also to give us a better in-depth look into what's happening in Israel with the Israel-Hamas war. I think it is so much bigger than that. Obviously, Iran plays a part in that. So he's joining us to talk to us about that. Robert Spencer, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. I appreciate you joining us.
Good to talk to you, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. Listen, I want to get your take first and foremost of what we're seeing happening across the United States. I'll be frank with you, Robert. I obviously we knew that there was anti-Semitism. I think there's been a spike in anti-Semitism across the country, particularly in the last few years, where we've seen a spike. But I did not expect to see what we're seeing now. Where literally, and perhaps we'll get that, if you could get that video, Gabe, maybe we'll play that for Robert here. But with these, even these college presidents, MIT, UPenn, Harvard, where it's seemingly they're okay with it. Is this a surprise to you?
It's no surprise at all, Carl. It's been coming for many years, and the groundwork for it has been very skillfully and carefully laid. Islamic groups have given millions and millions of dollars to key American universities, including Georgetown and Harvard, and Harvard was one of the ones where the president was saying yesterday that there wasn't really any rule against calling for a genocide against the Jews. And those Islamic groups, the Islamic, very rich entities in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they are responsible for legitimizing the idea on American college campuses that the occupation, the alleged occupation of Palestinian territory by Israel essentially justifies any response. And they have dehumanized Israel to such an extent that now it's been normalized among American college students that they can be openly anti-Semitic, and there's really no problem because Israel is just so evil that it justifies all of their behavior.
Yeah, this is absolutely astonishing to me. I had no idea that it was that pervasive. And I'm absolutely saddened and disgusted to see what we have been seeing and what we have been witnessing. I want to talk about the bigger threat that is Iran, and I do believe that there's an alliance now between China, Russia, and Iran. But for the sake of this conversation, I'll stick to Iran. Years ago, you wrote about the threat that is ISIS, but you talked about how ISIS isn't the real threat. Now we're dealing with Hamas. We're dealing with Hezbollah, who surprisingly have not been as aggressive as I suspected they would be at this point in time. And also now you have these Houthi rebels. All of them are backed by Iran. Talk to us about that, Robert.
Iran obviously wants to destroy Israel. They have made no mistake about that. They have spoken that repeatedly and on numerous occasions. And so it's very clear that they are determined to see Israel completely eradicated. I think it is puzzling. I share your puzzlement that Hezbollah has not been active in this, because if they had invaded from the north while Israel is caught up in Gaza, it would have been a very serious situation, still would be, if they did that anytime in the near future. But Iran essentially bankrolls both Hamas and Hezbollah as well as Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And that leads to the inescapable conclusion that this is really all about Islam. It's a religious war. It is not a war about land or settlements or occupation or territory. Otherwise, Iran would not be involved at all. Because if you think about it, Iran does not share a border with Israel. Israel has never been at war with Iran. Israel has never invaded Iran or occupied any part of it. Why would Iran care about the Palestinian situation except for Islamic principles that declare that any land that is ruled by Islam belongs by right to Islam forever? And so the fact that this is an Islamic conflict has been consistently ignored and denied by Western policymakers to our own detriment, but it's really the only thing that explains the Iranian involvement in this.
Okay, now if I could piggyback on that, Robert, and again, I'm speaking with my guest, Robert Spencer. You can go out. He's written a book, and it's been years since that book has been written. So any new material that you'd like to share, please feel free to do so, Robert. But again, The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran. And guys, I think this is just as relevant today, because it doesn't seem like the United States is learning. We're not learning our lessons, particularly when it comes to the President Joe Biden, regardless of who you might think is running the White House at this particular point in time. But it seems like they learned nothing. This administration, many of them coming from the Obama administration, Robert, from the Iran nuclear deal, which I argued years ago was never a deal. Iran never took the United States seriously.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That deal was completely one-sided. It was really ludicrous. The closer you looked at it, the worse it got. Iran actually had the right to inspect its own sites and then report back to the United Nations about its compliance. I mean, it was that crazy. And meanwhile, there was the still unexplained pallets of cash, the billions of dollars delivered in the dark of night by the Obama administration to Tehran. That money bankrolled Hamas and Hezbollah and led to this action now. Of course, the Biden administration is doing exactly the same thing. They just unfroze $10 billion in assets a couple weeks ago and sent it to Iran, which just prolongs this war. And it puts us in the situation where the administration professes support for Israel, but is actually bankrolling the war against Israel.
Yeah, this is I can't believe that there aren't louder voices speaking in the conservative movement. And when I say louder voices, I mean some of these candidates that are not making that emphatically clear. This makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, I don't know if the president is compromised. I suspect that is the case when it comes to China and Russia. Given some of the information that the House Oversight Committee has been bringing forth, if you will, about some of these payoffs here, but I don't understand the naivete when it comes to Iran. It simply doesn't make sense to me. What do you think of this latest proposal that I've been hearing from Democrats? Vice President Harris just the other day mentioned that, listen, the Palestinian Authority should be the ones to take over the Gaza Strip again. And I'm thinking, really? We're going to add another terrorist organization who lost their power to Hamas in the first place? This is just crazy. Help me help me make sense of this, Robert, please.
Well, it is crazy, and there's no doubt it's completely unworkable because the people in Gaza have already rejected the Palestinian Authority. But the reason why Kamala Harris and others are saying this is because the Palestinian Authority enjoys the reputation in Washington of being moderate. And there's absolutely no grounds for this. They're really the slow jihadis versus the fast jihadis of Hamas. In other words, the Palestinian Authority is more patient and is willing to wait and is willing to work through negotiated settlements to weaken and ultimately destroy Israel. But it shares that goal of weakening and ultimately destroying Israel with Hamas. So there really wouldn't be any significant difference if the PA took over Gaza. But above all, it ain't never going to happen. The Gazans don't like the Palestinian Authority, and they don't want them ruling over them, and they'll never accept it.
You know, that's fascinating to me because a lot of people say, you hear many people on the left say, well, listen, you have the IDF, you have the Israelis that are killing innocent civilians. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, listen, if civilians are dying in Gaza, it's because you have Hamas that are literally using civilians to block putting civilians in front of weaponry, Israeli weaponry. So this is insane. How is it that Iran has garnered so much power within our academic institutions here? That too doesn't make sense to me, Robert.
Well, that's all in terms of the academic institutions. That's all the power of money. And the Iranians, as well as the Qataris and the Saudis, have bought a massive influence in American universities by sending them millions of dollars. And so now those universities, they like money. They don't want to cross the people who are sending them the money. It's very simple. Really, if we were concerned about dealing with the root causes of so many of the problems today, then it would become against the law to have foreign entities funding American universities. And then the change you would see would be absolutely enormous, because their influence is being felt now at virtually every level of American society.
That's a very important point, and I think I want to hold there before we go to the break. Again, I'm speaking to Robert Spencer. Go out and read his columns. I was just reading some this morning, as a matter of fact, and go out and get the book, The Complete Guide to... Now, I forget the name of the book, Robert, but we'll make sure that we put it up on the screen. The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran. We'll be back with more. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. And again, I am joined by my guest, Robert Spencer. Go out and get his book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran. Also, you can check out some of his columns. I was just reading a couple of them this morning. I am curious, before we proceed here, Robert, where did this passion come from to expose Iran in the ways in which you have been doing, frankly?
Well, you know,
in the United
Carl,
States,
I remember back in
on
college
the threat of
when
Iran.
the
You do hear some of the same ones. It seems to be over and over, but this is just absolutely crazy. Just crazy to me. What do you
study that I was already
when
doing
people
of Islam in general and issues related to Islamic Jihad? And so it seems to me that it's been consistently underestimated ever since then, as a matter of fact, the nature and magnitude of the threat from Iran. People don't realize, but Iran is Shiite Muslim, and the Shiites are only about 15% at most of Muslims worldwide. But Iran has designs on establishing itself as the leader of the Islamic world. And to that end, it has gained control of the weak government in Baghdad, in Iraq, as well as massive influence over the government of Syria. And then it's got Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. Now, that forms an entire crescent of territory that could end up ultimately being a massive Iranian sphere of influence that would counter the United States on the global stage. And as you noted, ally with China and Russia, it could even end up in a world war. And so I think there needs to be a great deal more attention paid to this.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is just absolutely fascinating to me how we're ignoring this, and I don't hear enough politicians ask about the people of Iran that are being persecuted, that are being killed, beaten, so on, etc. How do you make the distinction between the people of Iran and the regime? Is there a distinction? I've heard there is.
Oh, there's very much of a distinction, and it's easy to make because it can be said without overstatement that the people of Iran hate the Islamic Republic and want to rid themselves of it, but they don't have the wherewithal to do so because the Islamic Republic has essentially total control of the society and is absolutely ruthless. It rules through terror. And so if an opposition figure were to stand up and criticize the regime openly, he'd be dead the next day. And it's very hard to form a real coherent opposition movement under those circumstances. But the Iranians, with national demonstrations and ongoing protests, have made it abundantly clear. In a very startling poll last year, only 40% identified as Muslim. Now, this is a country that was 99% Muslim, is still officially 99% Muslim, but after 40 years of the Islamic Republic, a massive number of Iranians have had enough of Islam, and that's a sign of their dissatisfaction with the regime. One of the worst aspects of the Obama administration and the Biden administration now is that they have refused to offer any meaningful support to the people of Iran that would enable them to rid themselves of this rogue regime.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my next question. If we wanted to help the people out without putting boots on the ground, is there a way to do that? Why do we ignore that? Do we don't see Iran, I'm guessing, as the threat that they are? Obviously, I mean, just like China, I mean, they're invading, if you will, our academic institutions and having serious influence there, given what we've seen over the last, since October 7th with these protests on these college campuses. This has just been insane. I mean, they are a threat to the United States, and we're ignoring that. Why?
Well, here again, it's the power of money, but also the Iranians have been very skillful. The Obama administration decided that they were going to pursue a strategy in which they would empower Iran as a source of stability in the region. And then Trump, he rejected all that very decisively. And so it's become kind of a part of the Biden administration's avid determination to repudiate absolutely every aspect of the Trump administration. And so that includes his skepticism toward Iran as being any kind of a reliable ally or reliable associate in any way. And so they are determined once again to empower Iran, and that has led actually to an appalling situation in which there is a large number of actual Iranian agents who have been publicly identified as such in the Biden administration. And even though they have been identified, Robert Malley, who was their liaison with
Right.
the Biden administration, he was removed, but they have not been removed. They're still there, and they're working for the interests of the Iranian regime. It's a massive scandal, and it's just another aspect of the appalling weakness and wrongheadedness of the Republicans that they haven't made anything of it.
Is this, in your opinion, Robert, is the Democrats' desire to work with the Iran regime? Is it naivete? Is it nefarious? Is it just we want a foreign policy win, which is what it seemed like Obama wanted? He was desperate for a foreign policy win. Is it just as you said? Listen, Trump did something. Trump's foreign policy was phenomenal. We've got to make him look bad. Meanwhile, they're putting us or endangering the American people. I really don't get it. I'd love some clarification or your opinion on that matter.
In the first place, these people are globalist, socialist internationalists, so they don't really have America at heart at all. They don't have America's interests in mind. They are only thinking in terms of coming to various accords with everybody on the planet ultimately, because they hope to unite the whole planet in a massive socialist megastate. And so that means they have to pacify Iran, and they think that they can do it. It's also become a point of pride, as you noted, because it was going to be the centerpiece of the Obama administration's accomplishments. And then that didn't work out, and Trump rolled it back. They also hate Trump, so they can vindicate Obama and repudiate Trump if they make a deal with Iran. And because they're not America first, because they are socialist internationalists, they don't care if if an agreement like that is to the disadvantage of America itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is insane to me. And even governors, I see, I mean, Governor Ron DeSantis, obviously, he's running for the presidency too. I mean, Trump's foreign policy was just phenomenal, but I appreciate the inroads that Governor DeSantis has been making in the state of Florida, which is where I am, to push Iranian any Iranian influence as well as Chinese influence out of our public schools and our institutions, higher learning. But it doesn't seem to be happening with a lot of Republicans. So it's just crazy to me that they wouldn't tackle this issue big time. I do want to ask you about this. There was a headline that I read yesterday. I've been combing through my laptop trying to find it, and now I can't find it. But it's in regards to the UN. And again, I'm speaking to Robert Spencer. Make sure you go out and get his book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran. Also read his columns. I mean, he's very well informed, as you can tell, on the subject of Iran, what's going on with Israel, Hamas, so on, etc. But the UN, there was a headline, Robert, that the UN was involved in and I don't know that it's been confirmed, but I do want to ask you about this, involved in hiding missiles for Hamas, as well as one of the Israeli hostages claimed that he was held in a closet of a UN, I think, resource worker, basically. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, this is the UN Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, which is the UN's refugee agency specifically and solely for the Palestinians. And they have very heatedly denied all this. However, it has to be said that it's entirely plausible. It's completely believable because, in the first place, Hamas rockets have been found previously in UN schools in Gaza. And the UN schools in Gaza have been found to be teaching jihad, violence against Israel, hatred of Jews, and all manner of things that would abet the Palestinian jihad. Many teachers have been found to be members of Hamas or other jihad groups in the past. And so it's very clear that the UNRWA doesn't really have any problem with Palestinian jihadis or with Hamas. And so why would it be absolutely out of the question that they would be hiding rockets now or holding hostages? I believe it entirely because I don't believe the UNRWA, and there are precedents for this behavior.
Good Lord. Listen, guys, you have to go out and get the book, The Complete Infidel's Guide to Iran. I'm going to be buying the book and following you more closely, Robert Spencer. Listen, it's been an honor to have you on the program. I appreciate you joining us, and keep up the good fight, please.
Absolutely. Well, the honor's all mine, and thank you, Carl.
All right.
Much appreciated. Good talking with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. So, guys, you've been listening to the Carl Jackson Show. Until next time, do not grow weary doing good. God bless you.